Billionaire, a maid's daughter, and $50,000 in cash left in an open safe. He sat in his chair, eyes closed, breathing steady, pretending to sleep, listening to her tiny footsteps approach the money. Would she steal it? She knelt down and whispered something that shattered his heart. But 48 hours later, when a $25,000 diamond necklace was found in her backpack, he didn't know what to believe anymore. Hold on. Before I reveal what she whispered and who set her up, drop your location in the comments. Where are you watching from? USA? Canada? South Africa? India? Let me see my global family. Type your city or country right now in the comments, and smash that like button if you're ready for the most emotional story you'll hear today. Do it now before we continue. Let me take you back to understand why one of the wealthiest men in America would do something like this. Chief Leonard Armstrong wasn't just rich. At 58, he was a titan whose name appeared in Forbes, Wall Street Journal, and every major business magazine in the country. But beneath the designer suits and billion-dollar empire, his heart was a graveyard of betrayal. His ex-wife had divorced him and walked away with $40 million after cheating with his closest friend. His business partner had embezzled $2 million before fleeing to Monaco. His own nephew had stolen a Rolex Daytona right off his nightstand. Even the housekeeper before this one had been caught with stolen jewelry worth $30,000. Trust no one. That was Leonard's only rule, the only philosophy that had never let him down. That's why, when his current maid, Nosy, asked if her 10-year-old daughter, Amara, could come to work with her during school break, every alarm bell in Leonard's head went off. A poor child, alone in a mansion filled with millions in valuables. He knew how this story ended. He'd lived it 100 times, but what he didn't know was that this little girl was about to demolish everything he thought he understood about human nature. The mansion study was a fortress of obscene wealth. Oak shelves lined with first-edition books worth $10,000 each. Original paintings by Monet and Picasso hanging on silk-covered walls worth more than most people's houses. And in the corner, built directly into the reinforced wall, a massive steel safe the size of a refrigerator. On this particular afternoon, Leonard sat in his $15,000 leather armchair and did something he'd never done before. He left the safe wide open. Then he scattered $50,000 in $100 bills across the Persian rug, a rug that itself cost $80,000. Messy, careless, like someone had been counting money and walked away mid-task. It looked like an accident, but it was a calculated trap. Then he closed his eyes and waited, his breathing deliberately slow and steady. Within minutes, he heard the soft pad of small footsteps in the marble hallway. His heart rate spiked. The footsteps paused in the doorway. He could feel small eyes scanning the room, landing on the money. Here we go, Leonard thought bitterly. Another thief. Another person proving that poverty and desperation destroy morality. The footsteps entered the room, closer, closer. Then they stopped right in front of the safe. Leonard held his breath, waiting for the inevitable sound of tiny hands snatching bills and stuffing them into pockets. But what he heard instead made every muscle in his body tense with confusion. The sound wasn't greedy rustling, it was gentle, careful, almost reverent. Papers being touched but not grabbed, moved but not stolen. Leonard cracked one eye open just a sliver, and what he saw stopped his heart. The little girl, Amara, wasn't taking the money. She was on her knees in front of the safe, her small hands gathering the scattered $100 bills, stacking them into neat, organized piles. Her movements were methodical, precise, like she was handling something sacred that absolutely did not belong to her. She pressed each stack down carefully, smoothing the edges the same way her mother folded laundry in the mansion's servant quarters. And then Leonard heard something that sent ice through his veins. She was humming, a soft, innocent children's tune. Like organizing a billionaire's cash was just another helpful chore. This made no sense. None of it made sense. But before I tell you what happened next, you need to understand who Nosy was. Because without understanding her, You can't understand why this moment was so devastating. Nosy had been 16 years old when she discovered she was pregnant. Just a teenager, still in high school, still believing in fairy tales. The boy, her first love, the one who whispered promises of forever under the stars, found out she was pregnant and disappeared within 48 hours, blocked her number, changed schools, vanished like smoke. When her strict, deeply religious parents found out, the judgment was swift and merciless. "You have brought shame to this house," her father had thundered, his face twisted with disgust and rage. "You are no longer my daughter." Her mother had turned her face away, tears streaming silently, refusing to even look at her only child. At 16 years old, Nosy was thrown out of her family home with nothing but the clothes on her back and a growing belly. Pregnant, homeless, abandoned by everyone. She slept on park benches when the shelters were full. She scrubbed public bathroom floors for $5 a day. She hauled 100-pound sacks of vegetables in the market for $3 an hour, her teenage body screaming in pain. Some nights she didn't eat at all, saving every penny for when the baby came. When Amara was finally born in a charity clinic, no family present, no celebration, just Nosy in a cold hospital room. She held her tiny daughter and made a vow through tears. "You are all I have in this world, and I will raise you with truth and discipline, even if the entire world rejects us both." That vow became her religion, her purpose, the only thing that kept her alive. She raised Amara on unwavering honesty, respect, and faith, even when they had absolutely nothing. Through a cleaning agency, Nosy finally found work in Leonard Armstrong's mansion, and for the first time in 10 brutal years, she could breathe. But life, as Nosy knew too well, never stopped testing her. Back in the study, Leonard watched through barely open eyes as Amara finished stacking the last pile of hundreds. She sat back on her heels, smiled faintly to herself with pure satisfaction, and then whispered something that made Leonard's entire world stop. "Mama always says, 'Don't touch what doesn't belong to you.' Uncle Leonard worked hard for this money. I'll help him keep it tidy." Leonard's chest constricted so painfully he thought he might be having a heart attack. This child, this poor child who probably didn't have $20 in her entire life, had just turned down $50,000. Not because someone was watching, not because cameras were rolling, not because she was afraid of getting caught, but because her mother had taught her that stealing was wrong, period, non-negotiable. The revelation hit Leonard like a physical blow to the gut. He'd been so convinced that poverty bred dishonesty, that people without money couldn't possibly resist temptation when it was placed in front of them. That poor people were morally weaker. And this 10-year-old girl raised in poverty by a teenage single mother had just proven him catastrophically, devastatingly wrong. His throat tightened, his eyes burned. But just as Leonard was processing this emotional earthquake, the study door flew open with force. "Amara!" Nosy's voice cracked through the room like thunder, trembling with pure primal terror. She stood in the doorway, a basket of fresh laundry crashing to the marble floor, her eyes locked in absolute horror on her daughter kneeling before the open safe, completely surrounded by money. Leonard watched as every drop of blood drained from Nosy's face. "What are you doing here?" Nosy's voice shook with fear as she rushed forward. Amara jumped, startled. Her eyes flashed, not with the guilt of stealing, but with the guilt of being somewhere she knew she shouldn't be. "Mama, I wasn't taking it, I promise. I was just arranging it because it looked messy." "No, no!" Nosy's voice was urgent, desperate, panicked. She dropped to her knees and grabbed the money from Amara's small hands, stacking it back into the safe with violently trembling fingers. "Don't ever come here again. Do you hear me? Never. This is not our business. This is not our money. We don't touch what isn't ours." "But Mama, I was just helping." "No, Amara." Nosy's eyes glistened with tears as she pulled her daughter into a crushing embrace. "Promise me. Promise me right now you will never touch what doesn't belong to you. Promise me." Amara nodded against her mother's chest, whispering through confused tears. "I promise, Mama. I promise." Nosy closed the safe with shaking hands, grabbed Amara firmly, and rushed out of the study like the room was on fire. Neither of them knew that Leonard had been awake the entire time. Neither of them knew he had seen everything: the innocence, the organizing, the whispered words, the mother's terror. And neither of them knew what he was about to do next. Leonard sat in his chair for a long time after they left, staring at the closed safe. His mind replayed Nosy's words on an endless loop. This is not our business. This is not our money. Not because she feared punishment, not because she worried about losing her job and her only source of income, but because she was teaching her daughter a principle, a moral boundary, a line that poverty, desperation, and suffering could not erase. Leonard had spent 58 years building walls. He'd spent decades believing that everyone had a price. But this woman was raising her daughter to be priceless. That evening, when Nosy came to Leonard's office to collect her weekly pay, he handed her an envelope. She opened it, counted the bills with practiced efficiency, and her eyes went wide with shock. "Sir, there must be a mistake. This is nearly double my usual." "No mistake, Nosy." Leonard's sharp blue eyes softened slightly. "You deserve every penny, for reasons you may not understand yet." Nosy blinked, utterly confused, but bowed deeply with gratitude. "Thank you, sir. God bless you." But as she left, Leonard made a decision. He needed to know more about this woman, this mother who somehow raised a saint in the middle of absolute suffering. What he was about to discover would shake him to his very core. That night, as Nosy lay on the small, worn mattress she shared with Amara in the tiny servants' quarters, memories crashed over her like waves. She had been only 16 when the pregnancy test showed 2 pink lines. 16. Still a child herself. The boy, her first everything, the one who'd promised her the world, had made his choice the moment she told him. He chose himself. He ran. He never looked back. When her deeply religious parents discovered her pregnancy, there was no discussion, no second chances, no compassion. "You have brought shame and disgrace to this family," her father had roared, his face purple with rage. "You are dead to us. You are no longer my daughter." Her mother had simply turned away, silent tears streaming, refusing to meet Nosy's desperate, pleading eyes. At 16, Nosy found herself on the streets with nothing, no home, no family, no money, no future. Just a growing belly and a shattered heart. She scrubbed floors in public restrooms until her hands bled. She carried loads in the market that were twice her body weight, collapsing in pain at night. She slept anywhere she could, park benches, bus stops, church steps, homeless shelters when there was space. Some nights she went without food entirely, saving her few dollars for the baby growing inside her. People stared at her pregnant teenage belly with judgment and disgust. Nobody helped. Nobody cared. When Amara was born in a cold charity hospital, no family present, no celebration, no joy. Nosy held her tiny, fragile daughter and whispered a vow through broken sobs. "You are all I have in this entire world, and I will raise you with truth, discipline, and integrity. Even if the world continues to reject us both." That vow became everything. Her compass, her religion, her reason to survive. She raised Amara on honesty and respect, even when they had nothing, even when they were hungry, even when the world treated them like trash. It was through a cleaning agency that Nosy finally, miraculously, found work in Leonard Armstrong's mansion, and for the first time in a decade of suffering, she could breathe. But life, as Nosy had learned the hard way, never stopped testing her. 3 weeks after the safe incident, Leonard's younger sister, Clara, arrived from London to spend the summer at the mansion. At 22 years old, Clara Armstrong was stunning, sharp-tongued, entitled, and deeply spoiled by a lifetime of extreme wealth. Leonard welcomed her warmly, despite often frowning at her careless, materialistic lifestyle. At first, Clara seemed completely uninterested in the household staff. She ignored Nosy entirely and didn't spare Amara a single glance. They were beneath her notice, invisible. But then things started to go missing. First, a $5,000 gold Cartier bracelet, then an $800 bottle of rare French perfume, then $500 in cash from Leonard's desk drawer. Each time something disappeared, Clara's voice would ring through the marble halls of the mansion in dramatic, theatrical outrage. "Leonard, you cannot trust these people," she cried one morning, storming into his study with perfectly practiced tears. "I'm telling you, your maid and her little brat are stealing from you." Leonard's heart skipped a painful beat. The memory of Amara carefully, lovingly stacking his money flashed through his mind. The pure innocence in her young eyes, the fierce discipline in Nosi's terrified voice. "You're mistaken, Clara," he said firmly, his jaw set. "Nosy and Amara would never—" "Oh, don't be so pathetically naive, Leonard," Clara snapped, her eyes flashing with anger. "This is what they do. They pretend to be loyal and humble while robbing you blind when you're not looking. I personally saw that little girl lingering suspiciously near the safe the other day. Wake up before it's too late." Her words stabbed directly into Richard's chest, reopening old wounds. He wanted desperately to defend them. He'd seen Amara's honesty with his own eyes. But the old scars whispered poison in his ear. His ex-wife's betrayal and affair. His business partner's embezzlement. His nephew's theft. The previous housekeeper's stolen jewelry. "Everyone has a price," the wounds whispered. "Everyone. You were a fool to think these people were different." That night, Leonard sat alone in his dark study, staring at the safe with a clenched jaw and a breaking heart. "Was I wrong to trust them?" he muttered to the empty room. "Was I blinded by one single moment of staged innocence?" The ghost of doubt had returned with a vengeance, and it was about to get so much worse. Meanwhile, in the cramped servants' quarters, Nosi sat on the edge of her thin mattress, deep worry etched across her exhausted face. Amara looked up at her mother with concern. "Mama, why do you look so sad?" Nosi forced a weak smile, gently brushing her daughter's hair. "Nothing, my precious child. Sometimes life tests us, but we must never, ever stop holding on to what is right." Amara leaned against her mother's shoulder. "You always say the truth will protect us, Mama." Nosy kissed her daughter's forehead softly, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Yes, my love. The truth always protects us. Always. Even when the entire world tries to paint us as thieves and liars." What Nosy didn't know, what she couldn't know, was that at that exact moment, Clara Armstrong was standing in front of her bedroom mirror, holding a velvet box. Inside lay a diamond necklace, a gift Leonard had given Clara for her 21st birthday, worth $25,000. A cold, calculated smile curved Clara's lips as she stared at her reflection. "Let's see how long your precious maid and her angelic little daughter last, Leonard," she whispered to herself with venom. The trap was about to be set, and it would nearly destroy everything. The next evening, while Nosi and Amara were busy in the kitchen washing dishes and preparing dinner, Clara slipped silently into the servants' quarters like a ghost. Her movements were practiced, calculated, rehearsed. She pulled out Amara's small, worn backpack, the one the girl carried her precious storybooks in, and unzipped it with careful precision. With a smile that never reached her cold eyes, Clara tucked the $25,000 diamond necklace deep into the bottom of the bag, underneath the worn books and broken pencils. Perfect. The trap was set. 2 days later, Clara stormed into Leonard's study during his morning coffee, her eyes wide with perfectly practiced panic. "Leonard!" she cried, her voice trembling with theatrical desperation. "My diamond necklace is gone, the one you gave me for my birthday." "I've searched everywhere. It's missing." Leonard frowned deeply, setting down his newspaper. "Are you absolutely sure? Perhaps you simply misplaced—" "No!" Clara shook her head vehemently, her voice rising to draw attention. "I know exactly where I kept it in my jewelry box. Someone stole it." Her voice carried loudly through the mansion, deliberately drawing the household staff. Nosy and Amara appeared in the doorway moments later, confused and deeply concerned. Clara spun on them like a predator who had finally cornered its prey. "Check their things," she demanded sharply, pointing directly at them with an accusing finger. "That's where you'll find my necklace." Nosy gasped, clutching her chest in shock. "God forbid, Madame Clara. We have never—" "Save your pathetic lies!" Clara cut her off with vicious sharpness. I saw that little brat lingering around my room yesterday, touching my things. She's learning from you, Nosy, teaching her to be a thief just like her mother." Tears instantly filled Nosy's eyes. Amara clutched her mother's hand, her small body trembling. Leonard's jaw tightened painfully. He didn't want to believe Clara, but the accusations weighed so heavily on his scarred heart. His old wounds screamed, "Haven't you been betrayed before? Haven't you lost millions by trusting the wrong people? Don't be a fool again." "Bring the girl's backpack," Clara insisted with cold certainty. With violently trembling fingers, Nosy slowly unzipped Amara's small, worn backpack, praying desperately under her breath. "Please God, please God, please God." And then collective gasps filled the entire room. There, at the bottom of the bag, nestled beneath innocent storybooks, lay Clara's diamond necklace, glittering under the study lights. "No," Nosy whispered, collapsing to her knees on the hard floor. "No, no. I swear, sir. This is not ours. I don't know how. I don't understand how." Clara smirked faintly behind her hand, though she quickly masked it with a look of wounded betrayal. "You see, Leonard?" she said quietly, her voice dripping with false sympathy and triumph. "This is exactly what happens when you let wolves into your home disguised as sheep." Leonard's hands trembled uncontrollably as he picked up the necklace, the diamonds catching the light. His eyes darted painfully between the terrified maid on her knees, the sobbing child, and his sister's cold, accusing glare. Had he been a complete fool to trust them? Had that moment with the money been an elaborate setup? Amara's small, breaking voice cut through the suffocating silence, cracking with heartbroken sobs. "Uncle Leonard, I didn't take it. I promise I didn't. Mama says stealing is evil and God punishes thieves. I didn't touch it. Please, please, please believe me." Her tiny body shook violently with tears, her face wet and desperate. Leonard's chest constricted so painfully he could barely breathe. He remembered watching her arrange his money with such care and innocence. The pure love in her eyes, the fierce discipline in her mother's terrified warning. Could all of that have been an elaborate act? For 2 agonizing days, the Armstrong mansion remained frozen in unbearable tension. Nosy barely ate a single meal, her dignity completely crushed under the weight of suspicion and shame. Amara clung to her mother constantly, whispering desperate prayers at night through tears, and Leonard couldn't rest, couldn't sleep, couldn't think. Something gnawed relentlessly at Leonard's mind. The pieces didn't fit. The logic was broken. If Amara had been willing to steal a $25,000 diamond necklace, why hadn't she taken even one of the $50,000 bills when she had the perfect chance? If Nosy was raising a thief, why had she reacted with such genuine, visceral terror when she found her daughter simply near the money? Why would someone planning to steal teach their child, "Don't touch what doesn't belong to you"? The puzzle was incomplete. Wrong. So Leonard made a decision that would change everything. He ordered a quiet, confidential investigation. The mansion had security cameras, rarely used in the private guest wing for privacy reasons, but they were there, recording everything. When the head of security brought him the footage from the hallway near Clara's room, Leonard's blood turned to ice in his veins. There she was, his own sister, his own blood, slipping into the servants' quarters, while Nosy and Amara were busy in the kitchen. A small velvet box clearly, unmistakably visible in her hand. Leonard's hands shook violently as he watched the footage again and again, his heart shattering. His own sister had framed them. His own family had tried to destroy the only genuinely honest people in his entire house. That evening, Leonard called everyone into the study with a voice of absolute steel. Clara entered wearing an elegant designer dress and a smug, confident expression, clearly certain she had won this battle. Nosy stood silently near the wall, hands clasped, dignity shattered, but spine still straight. Amara clung to her mother's side, eyes still red and swollen from days of crying. Leonard rose slowly from his chair, holding the diamond necklace in his hand like evidence in a courtroom. "Clara," he said quietly, his voice like cold steel, "do you know what always, inevitably betrays a liar?" She tilted her head with false confusion, playing innocent. "What are you talking about, Leonard?" He pressed a button on his desk. The security footage appeared on the massive screen behind him, crystal clear and undeniable. Clara's face drained of every drop of color as her own actions played out for everyone in the room to witness, her sneaking into the servants' quarters. The velvet box clearly visible in her hand, her planting the necklace deep in Amara's innocent backpack, her checking to make sure no one saw, her cold smile of satisfaction. Nosy gasped audibly, covering her mouth with both hands. Amara blinked in complete confusion, not fully understanding what she was seeing. Leonard turned slowly to his sister, his voice now trembling with pure volcanic fury. "You, my own blood, you planted this evidence on them. You tried to destroy the only people who have shown me genuine honesty in this entire house full of liars. Leonard, I can explain. Silence!" His voice boomed like thunder, physically shaking the walls and windows. "You have shamed me. You have shamed yourself. And you have revealed exactly who you truly are." Clara stammered desperately, her face burning crimson with humiliation, then fled the room like a criminal, unable to face the truth. Leonard turned slowly to Nosy and Amara, his eyes now heavy with devastating guilt and shame. "I doubted you," he whispered, his voice breaking like shattered glass. "Even after what I saw with my own eyes. Even after witnessing your daughter's pure heart. I let suspicion and old wounds cloud my judgment. I let my sister poison my mind against you. Forgive me. Please, forgive me." Nosy's eyes filled with tears, but she bowed deeply with grace and dignity. "Sir, we forgive you. We understand completely. Pain makes the heart cautious and fearful. Betrayal builds walls. But the truth always speaks. Always. It may take time, but it always reveals itself." Amara stepped forward, her small voice soft but remarkably steady for a 10-year-old child. "Uncle Leonard, Mama says that even when people don't trust us, we must still do what is right, because that's how God sees our heart. Not what people think, but what God knows." Leonard's throat tightened so much he could barely breathe. He bent down slowly, placing his hand gently on the little girl's small shoulder. "Your mother raised you with more wisdom than I learned in 58 years, Amara. And because of you, because of both of you, I've learned that trust should never be built on wealth, blood, or appearances, but on character, on integrity, on truth." He turned to Nosy, his voice thick with emotion. "From this day forward, you are more than my employee. You are family. And your daughter," he smiled faintly through tears, his eyes softening, "is my greatest teacher. She taught me what a lifetime of wealth could never teach." Nosy wept openly, pulling Amara into her arms as years of pain, struggle, and fear finally released. For the first time in years, perhaps decades, Leonard Armstrong felt his heart genuinely lighten. The scars of betrayal were still there, permanently etched into his soul. But now, a new truth had taken deep root in the broken soil. Honesty knows no class, no race, no status, no bank account. It can be found in the most unexpected, overlooked places. Even in the small, innocent hands of a teenage mother's child. Even in those the world has rejected and forgotten. In the weeks that followed, Leonard ensured Amara received the best education money could buy. He established a college fund in her name worth $500,000. He promoted Nosy to head of household staff with triple her previous salary. But more importantly, more valuable than any money, he learned to trust again. Not blindly, not foolishly, but wisely. Based on character, not circumstance. Clara was asked to leave the mansion and never returned. And every time Leonard looked at that safe in his study, he remembered the little girl who taught him that integrity cannot be bought, sold, or destroyed by poverty. The moral of this story? True trust is not built on wealth, status, or family ties. It is revealed through character, discipline, and unwavering honesty. Never judge a person by their background, their circumstances, or their struggles. Even the smallest, most overlooked hands can carry the greatest integrity. Now tell me, what did you learn from today's story? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story touched your heart, smash that like button. Subscribe for more inspiring stories just like this, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next one. Thank you for watching. Thank you for